The goal of every martial art is to defeat an opponent as quickly and efficiently as possible. Long has man searched for a technique that can subdue an attacker in a single strike, be it the legendary Iken Hisatsu of karate, the pressure point attacks of wuxia novels, or even the 5-point palm exploding heart technique from Kill Bill and its D&D counterpart, the quivering palm. And from this pursuit, different cultures and civilizations began attempting to develop a technique to kill their enemies in a single attack. From jujutsu, to karate, to kung fu, to any and every other martial art, practitioners began developing and practicing lethal techniques and studying human anatomy and biology to learn how best to deconstruct the human body, and the culmination of the most lethal techniques humanity has created is the Way of the Void. Welcome back to Combat Clarification Grappler Baki Styles Explained. For those of you unfamiliar, this is a series where I look at a martial art style from the manga series Grappler Baki, and I explain the history of the art, how it works, and the style's representation in media. In this video, thanks to a request from NSL Kage and me or something 5732, and you guys hitting the like goal for the last video, Japanese Jujutsu Explained, I'm gonna be talking about the Way of the Void. Now, of course, being that, so far as I could tell, this style is completely fictitious, there won't be a representation in media section, but that just means more of the video can be dedicated to describing this strange and lethal martial art, and what it could be based upon from real life. Alright, let's get started with the history of this martial art. This section will probably be unusually short, considering this tends to be the longest part of these videos, being packed with as much information as I can find on these several hundred to several thousand-year-old styles of combat. But as to be expected with a martial art that was made up in Baki, there isn't much history to comb through. From what we know, the Way of the Void, Kudo, not to be confused with the real-life Kudo, is an incredibly lethal martial art that's been taught for several decades to people from across the world that would need a strictly deadly martial art for their line of work. While it's unknown whether or not Kunimatsu is the founder of this style, he's been teaching this martial art for at least several decades, as he's the sensei of Ryuko Yanagi, the man who's responsible for Goki Shibukawa having lost his eyes several years prior to the events of the Maximum Tournament. We also know that 2 of the 3 primary techniques in the Way of the Void style, Benda and Poison Hand, are rooted in Chinese martial arts, Poison Hand also being practiced by Lee Kaio in the Raitai tournament, and Retsu knowing the Whip Strike as the Columbus's Egg, and that Kunimatsu himself is based on the founder of Bujinkan Ninjutsu, Masaki Hatsumi, and his master, Toshitsugu Takamatsu, so considering its lethal nature, its ties to ninjutsu, and its roots in wushu, it's possible that the Way of Void is supposed to be a style similar to ninjutsu, but perhaps with less of a focus on tactics and espionage, and more of a focus in assassination and killing. This would also be supported by the nature of how these primary techniques kill their targets. Through pain on an unarmored target with the Whip of Mercury, through hypoxia or oxygen deprivation with the Vacuum Palm, and through poisoning with the Poison Hand. If that's the case, then it can be expected to be about 2,000 years old, with ninjutsu likely having started as a style in the 6th century BC, though despite their similarities, and they're both even including extensive weapon usage as evident by Yanagi's use of somewhat exotic techniques and Kunimatsu's dojo, the 2 martial arts likely had drastically different histories, doubly so since Bujinkan itself is only about 50 years old, and the Way of the Void seems more like a modern style to me. Though its history may be short, and there might not be a lot known about its origins, the Way of the Void is incontrovertibly one of the deadliest martial arts in fiction, with even the likes of Ryuko Yanagi, a man of incredibly small stature compared to the rest of his death row inmate counterparts, being powerful enough and deadly enough to overcome and defeat any opponent regardless of strength. A practitioner of the Way of the Void is capable of creating enough suction in the palm of their hand to scale sheer surfaces and rip the flesh from a person's body with a touch, but a particularly skilled or talented fighter can create enough suction to rip a hole through a brick wall in a jet cockpit bulletproof glass wall, suction a piece of paper, something incredibly difficult to do due to paper's lack of rigidity, and create a vacuum of 6% oxygen in the palm of their hand, a percentage of oxygen that makes it a more dangerous gas than sarin gas or hydrogen cyanide gas. While a normal practitioner may not be capable of this, an experienced master like Kunimatsu or a talented prodigy like Yanagi can use that vacuum to knock a person clean out or straight up kill that person in a single move by forcing them to breathe the oxygen in. Add to that practitioners of Kudo can blow your brains out of your ear, rend your flesh from your bones with a slap or kick, making blocking completely useless and ineffective, and lethally poison anyone with a single touch via Poison Hand. Throughout this series, we're not only able to see every aspect of this style on display, but at every skill level as well. An example of an average practitioner would be Jin Kano, a man taught by Yanagi who was capable of defeating a professional kickboxing champion with ease, and holding his own against Mumon Katsuragi, Katsumi Orochi's older brother and the direct disciple of Taizan Matsumoto, father of Kozue Matsumoto, and former Korakuen champion. We see that Jin may not be capable of using Vacuum Palm to the same degree of mastery as Yanagi, being that he never uses the vacuum to force feed an opponent the 6% oxygen for an instant kill, but he's still able to tear people's flesh off and support his entire body weight by clinging to the ceiling with his Vacuum Palm. From the context that Kunimatsu taught Yanagi, while we've never seen Kunimatsu fight, we can assume that he's like a more complete Jin or like a less skilled Yanagi. He's almost certainly capable of using all the techniques we see Yanagi use, such as Vacuum Palm, Benda, and Poison Hand. It's just that, as he lost to Yanagi, Yanagi would have to be the more skilled combatant, be it through underhanded tactics or otherwise. Jin, being taught by Yanagi only while he was still with the dojo and before his imprisonment, would be an example of a novice of the style or an average practitioner. Kunimatsu would be an example of a master, or somebody who has no particular talent, but has decades of experience and years of teaching it to others. But Ryuko Yanagi is of an entirely different class. Ryuko Yanagi is a prodigy, much like Katsumi or Baki, hence why he's capable of the peak of what the Way of the Void has to offer. He is the pinnacle of the style. We also get to see the weapon-using skills of the style in Yanagi, as he's seen using a dual-roped Kama with enough skill to combat Baki, concealed weapons like the Bognak well enough to surprise attack and tag Shibukawa, and he almost killed Doyle with his katana, so we know that all the weapons on the walls at Kunimatsu's place aren't just for show. Now, creating a perfect vacuum with just your hand is not possible in real life, but you can use the basic principles of creating a vacuum with your hand in a container. If you put your hand over the opening of a container and then you pull it away, you can create a lower pressure inside the container compared to the outside. It's basically a vacuum, but not a true one. You can also kind of create one with the palms of your hands if you happen to have soft or sweaty palms. If you squeeze your palms together, you can create a small vacuum. But while this is closer to the idea of the vacuum palm, the vacuum created by the container example is closer to the actual vacuum made by the technique. While it may not be possible to create a true vacuum in your hand, the science behind oxygen being the most dangerous gas in the world actually adds up. According to NASA, the air in Earth's atmosphere is made up of approximately 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, meaning the percentage of oxygen we breathe is in fact 21%. Okay, well what about the whole 6% thing? Do people really start getting nauseous, dizzy, and start falling unconscious if they breathe in 6% or less oxygen content in the air they breathe? Well, according to OSHA, breathing air containing 6 to 10% oxygen results in nausea, vomiting, lethargic movements, and perhaps unconsciousness. Breathing air containing less than 6% oxygen produces convulsions, then apnea, cessation of breathing, followed by cardiac standstill. These symptoms occur immediately. So yeah, if you were a skilled enough practitioner of the Way of the Void and you could create a vacuum in the palm of your hand, you could absolutely knock out or kill a person with Vacuum Palm. As for Benda, well, I could only really find that a whip, particularly a bull whip, was good for causing lacerations and incisions in a fight. There is a basis for slapped-based martial arts and techniques. Subak is a good example of a martial art that features slaps. It has straight slaps like sumo, so more so palm thrusts, but also swing slaps, specifically frontal swing slaps and side cheek slaps, and while they don't tear skin at the level of Benda, I imagine that, due to a slapping open hand not penetrating as deeply into muscle tissue as a punch, but having a wider surface area, it's certainly possible to cause skin to split with a slap from Subak. Another example is all of the slapping techniques found in Kung Fu and Okinawan karate. The real-life slapping techniques in Kung Fu are likely the origin of Byakurenji Chinese Kempo's Columbus's Egg in Grappler Baki, and many of the karate kata found in the Bubishi, or the book basically documenting the advent of karate, feature slapping strikes to the back, the face, and the ears. So par for the course, it seems as though two of the Way of the Void's trifecta signature techniques are simply exaggerated versions of techniques that exist, or are based upon real, indisputable science, but what of the third? Well, the closest thing I could find to a poison hand technique in martial arts is Dim Mak, a Chinese martial art of pressure point strikes. The poisoning they do is more metaphorical, Namely, they poison the flow of chakra or ki in your body, which is basically just your ability to breathe properly as well as your nerves and your blood flow, among other things. And rather than wantonly attacking any target in an attempt to break the skin and poison the foe, Dim Mak users choose specific points to attack based on Chinese acupuncture, choose their method of attack since pressure points are incredibly difficult to strike, and use acupuncture to heal themselves after a fight if need be. There's also, for example, Ketsugo, an art combining Okinawan karate and judo among other things, that has 40 different poison hand striking techniques. But again, this appears to be a collage of pressure point strikes meant to do disproportionate or permanent damage, like a strike to the groin for example, hence the comparison to poison. The closest actual thing to poison hand in martial arts is in, to nobody's surprise, Ninpo, where they used to wear small rings with spikes on them coated with poison. Not only is it actually poison, but it can only work from open palm contact, as the spike is facing towards the palm. And yes, it can be reversed, allowing for a punch to have the same effect, but that's not the intended use, and there are plenty of better, more efficient options in that regard. So, is poisoning the hand itself theoretically possible, but just hasn't been done? Well, the CDC says that absorption of poison through the skin is possible and fairly common in the form of dermal absorption, and your skin can retain liquid as seen in oedemia, or when your skin retains fluids like sweat and swells. But I'm not sure if A, that can be maintained as Kudo practitioners do, B, if the balance of poison and antidote in the measurements and exposure explained would work, and C, I don't know about the logistics of increasing your resistance and immune system's ability to fight a poison while actively poisoning yourself, or how it's possible for yin and yang poison hand to cancel each other out, though that last one may just be a product of the insects and flowers being used for the poisons canceling each other out, which would be insanely lucky, but technically not impossible. In short, The Way of the Void, while being a fictional style, is a well-developed martial art with its own origin, history, identity, and unique techniques and tactics. It is, at its core, a chiefly kickboxing style that allows for every attack that hits, even if blocked, to be a critical and potentially fatal one, has a technique that's incredibly versatile, be it for movement in the form of scaling and clinging to surfaces, tearing an opponent's skin off, or giving someone a heart attack, and has a guaranteed victory condition in the form of Poison Hand, where unless you're a Hanma who has a biological resistance to poisons, have your poison countered by a poison user of the opposite style, and can activate adrenaline while under these effects and while being cried on, you will die if a Poison Hand user so much as touches you. This martial arts style is incredibly dangerous, completely lethal, a well thought out inclusion to a series that features so many real world martial arts, and a staple of the lore of Grappler Baki. It's no wonder that so many dangerous people want to learn this style, and why every named character that knows this style either wants to kill their master or almost has at some point. The very nature of the style is violence beyond belief and death at an unimaginable scale for an unarmed fighter, and even then the style is also an armed one, with the Way of the Void being single-handedly responsible for the most permanent injuries and deaths of any one style in Baki. It's a style with a reputation to be feared, and its practitioners a force to be reckoned with only if you are willing to lose your life. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think about the Way of the Void, and any interesting facts I may have missed, as well as what other styles you guys want to see for this series. If this video gets but 40 likes in a week, I'll be posting the next Styles Explained video on Doppo and Katsumi Orochi's Mind and Body Shinshin Kaikon Karate. So be sure to support this video and the channel if you want that out soon. I've been Red Fox, the king of YouTubers, and this has been Combat Clarification, Grappler Baki Styles Explained. I'll see you all next time. Peace.